You're listening to Pop This, the podcast where two women talk about everything pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen and Andrea Warner.
So, Andrea, I have something I have to say to you.
Okay, please.
I know. It's how long will I pause?
I never know, because I don't know what you're going to do to me.
But this is something lovely.
Okay.
And I don't want to get too choked up.
Uh-huh.
But happy 200th episode.
It's so wild. I can't believe this is our 200th episode.
Our 200th episode.
Yeah, and for the most part, happy 200th to you as well. I'm sorry, I did not want. And happy 200th, Andrea Gin.
Yes, all of us
hanging out in the.
Is
booth.
it like I don't know
What's
how to.
the 200th gift?
Yeah, is it like menstrual blood or something?
I mean,
probably,
definitely menstrual blood, but mine just finished last week, so I don't know if we've synced up yet or not.
Yeah, no, because I'm just trying to think of how would you celebrate a feminist podcast.
I mean,
that's had 200 episodes.
I think just.
Congratulations.
Happy 200th. Congratulations.
Maybe a drink later at some point.
Maybe. Probably not tonight.
People.
But yeah, like normal people. You can celebrate something and we don't have to we probably don't have to yet to get matching tattoos or do a blood oath or anything.
Right. Although we've probably reviewed many movies that have done those things.
100%. And honestly, a blood oath, I'm not against. I'm
No.
just going to let everyone know.
Maybe some practical magic margaritas.
Oh, where we just bring a terrible ex back to life.
Optional.
Say, or cheers a diva cup.
Oh, that's sweet. I like that.
Wow.
I wish that I should use a diva cup. Also, we're really still holding out hope for what's that the local pad company that's Lunapads. Yeah, we'll hold out hope for their sponsorship at some point in the future. So come at us.
Does a Diva
Episode
cup have,
300.
because I haven't seen them, does it have rhinestones on it? Has it been bedazzled? Because Diva always makes me feel like...
Don't do that to the insides of your vagina. That's...
Well,
because you're shoving it up there, right? You
how
need
about
to,
just drawings?
No, do you remember
No, right, no.
You can't really
things.
do stuff on those kinds of things. When you put words on condoms, people get pregnant. There's just you just.
Does your mom tell you that? I don't think that. I don't know if I've ever heard.
Did I ever tell you that I always honestly thought that I was definitely an accident because my parents were 18 and 21 when they had me, 17 and 20 when they got pregnant. I always assumed I was an accident. And randomly, about 6 to 7 years ago, my mom was like, "No, I always planned to have 2 kids before I was 20."
Oh.
And I was like, what are you even talking about?
Wow.
This must be revisionist history. There is no way people plan to have 2 kids before they're 20.
Well, watching The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, remember her line? 3 before 30.
3 before 30. That seems more reasonable than 2 before 20.
Well, she must have just kind of twisted the saying up there.
The calibration?
Yeah.
Oh, so Mrs. Maisel got it from my mom. Elsie Warner, 2 before 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. Elsie, 2 before 20 Warner. That's nice.
I did not know that about you.
Yeah, I always thought that I was half bastard. And
half bastard?
That's how I described it.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of that expression either.
I've coined that. I mean, it's my
Is
mom
it because of you were out of wedlock?
She was
Is that
8
why?
months pregnant when they got
but then
when they got
you
married.
were delivered into marriage, so you're not a bastard.
But I was conceived outside of marriage.
I don't think that. I don't.
Oh,
think
that doesn't matter.
No. You just
it
married.
has to be born into. Okay.
Have you not seen enough movies where the shotgun wedding? That's why you have a shotgun wedding.
Oh, you know what? I don't know that I really put that together until just this moment. Okay. All right. You're right. Of course you're right. I've just never thought about it.
Because I think that, I even know my
why
grandparents were pregnant when my dad.
But that's why I said
that's
half.
why people get married.
Yeah, that's why they got married.
No, but that's why I said half.
Yeah, well.
Half. I thought.
But then I'm going to wager a guess that half this entire planet.
Oh, for
probably
sure. 100%. Yeah.
Is in
if
that
not
same
more.
boat. If not more.
If not more. Yeah.
If not 3/4.
Well,
yeah,
happy
exactly.
200th.
Yeah, it went as this podcast usually does into directions I wasn't expecting.
What do you mean?
I say happy 200th, and suddenly I find out that you were possibly conceived in a weird. I don't know where you were.
I don't know where it was either. Actually,
Do you think it's nice for? Here's another tangent that. Brooklyn Beckham. I mean, who's got nothing to complain about.
Sure.
At all.
Knows exactly where they were conceived.
Because that's his name.
I mean, Rachel, do you know your conception story?
No, I'm sorry. I don't think Jews talk about stuff like that.
That's
no,
fair. That's
it's
fair.
not.
I don't know my conception story either, and
I don't want to know.
Okay.
Let's all make a Diva Cup pact to find out as much as we can, and then follow up at some point.
We'll follow up at episode.
I mean, I know that
250.
there's some people, obviously, that there's like, well, I was in Mexico for one night, and so that's easy.
Sure.
But
Sure, yeah.
most people, I don't. And then I was watching a show once where this woman was like, well, we were heading home from Def Leppard and pulled over in the car. So there's a story.
Honestly, that is a story, and I do know that my parents separately with separate friends attended the same Heart concert in 1978, I believe.
Uh-huh.
An early Heart show.
Nothing gets you running like a Heart concert.
Honestly, I've left Heart concerts being like, all right, let's do it.
I know.
It's fine.
They start Barracuda, and you're just like, I'm thinking about sex now.
Honestly, and it never the song where the story song where she intentionally gets pregnant. That one.
All I want to do is
make love to you.
Yes.
That song is so funny to me. I have thought about that song a lot. I've written about it. I just can't get it out of my mind.
And the duet with Mike Reno is always.
It's a showstopper.
Yeah.
But I'm really all about Crazy. I love Crazy on You. It's
Dreamboat Annie's not going to get anyone fired up either.
No.
Anyway,
you're listening to Pop This. This
Yes.
is not the most elegant segue, but actually, I guess
stop us talking about this now.
Stop us talking about it
Yeah.
now. I mean, I guess if we went back to like Blood Pact, we would get a good swivel in. I'm Andrea Warner,
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
and you're listening to Pop This.
Episode 200.
200.
Yeah.
And for our 200th episode, we have a very special guest.
Hi.
Were you aware that you would be with us for the 200th?
No, I didn't know. I feel like is there cake?
Yeah,
There should be something.
but sorry.
Confetti at the very least.
I lured Rachel here with the promise of talking about like feminist horror, and then surprised her with our 200th.
You make that sound like a lie. That's actually what is happening.
That is what's happening.
Yes.
We've already talked about Diva Cups, so I think we were
Next logical place to go.
Exactly.
Halloween.
Yeah, right.
Halloween 2018. Mm-hmm. So first we're going to read your bio.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm very excited. Rachel Fox has been senior programmer at Vancouver's favorite independently owned and operated Rio Theatre since 2012. Originally from London, Ontario, Rachel studied film and television at UBC and BCIT, and over the years has written about music and film for numerous blogs, as well as The Georgia Straight and Bitch magazine. Her favorite horror movie of all time is The Silence of the Lambs.
All of that is mostly correct.
Oh.
Great.
Yeah, very correct.
I mean, if it was incorrect, I'm going to blame you because you sent this to me.
I did write it.
You're like, okay, here, I'm going to confess to you right now.
Mm-hmm.
I've also written for Cosmo.
Cosmo?
No, I'm talking about you. I'm pretending I'm Rachel.
No.
No.
No, I'd remember that.
Okay,
Yeah.
just checking. Just checking.
Yeah.
I went through a Cosmo phase. I mean, didn't we all at some point? No?
No.
I used to like to read their bedroom astrologer column because I thought they always give Aquariuses a lot more credit than we deserve for our sexual stupendousness.
Are you an Aquarius?
Uh-huh.
What? Me too.
January 25th.
29th.
Yay.
Oh.
Hi, team.
Hi. Same as Oprah.
I'm afraid of divulging my horoscope sign for like all of a sudden being we're incompatible. Gotta go.
Can you imagine 200 episodes? Done.
I'm on a cusp.
What's your cusp?
Taurus, Aries.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah.
See, ouch.
No,
I don't
not
even know what that
ouch.
means.
No, I have a lot of complicated, intense relationships with Tauruses, and really
Now
great
you just
energy.
made it sound to
Hold
everyone like
on.
we have a complicated relationship.
No, and
Okay.
great relationships with Aries. So we have the combination. That's like what keeps our fire alive.
Oh, okay.
That's
We're
like-
always very concerned our relationship might get stale.
Yeah, and we have like enough in common, but we have enough differing opinions to keep it spicy.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
sweet.
That's nice, right?
Well, 200 episodes. Who knew? Look how beautiful she is. Just like the first episode. You know?
That's right.
Yeah, I didn't get stale and crusty over our 200 episodes.
No.
Now all I want to do is listen to that Heart song over and over again. You guys are really sweet.
It's in my head right now, actually.
But we're going to talk about Halloween.
The movie and the season, or?
No, not the season, just the movie.
Yes.
And Halloween 2018.
Yeah, specifically.
And
there are a lot of
11?
Halloween movies.
Endless.
And
Yeah.
From like a little indie horror film back in 1978.
78.
Yeah, because it was the 40th anniversary last year.
Yeah, and then a lot of weird things happened to the franchise, I guess.
Season of the Witch. I mean, it goes
with Jamie Lee Curtis, without Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yep.
It's been a lot of places. And to be honest, I've never seen any of them. Except this one now.
Well, I mean, it 2018 is kind of a miracle because if I'm not mistaken, she was actually beheaded in one of them.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
So this is a real miracle move for her.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's very Jesus.
It's a real resurrection, kind of situation,
Jesus.
yeah.
Well, I like the fact that, so, I mean, I know enough about pop culture that I know a lot of the reference points, obviously, for Halloween. And so even though I've never seen the original, I knew that this one picked up after that original and ignored a lot of the other sort of like mythology of the other films, pretended those ones didn't exist. It goes on, it's its own universe, which is fine. I don't actually mind if you're going to like rewrite history, if you just tell me how I need to sort of, what universe I'm in. So that it doesn't bother me too much, but you guys have seen a lot of the other films.
Yes.
I think over the years I've probably seen a couple of them. I would never put myself in camp, Halloween aficionado.
Or a completist.
Yeah.
I've seen the first one a few times.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's what, to me, I think was sort of interesting with, I suppose in some respect they've all been reboots. Like the one with Michelle Williams was really, flouted as a reboot. But I like the idea of the concept of 2018 as kind of a bookend to the original. So it's like nothing else in the middle happened. It's
Yes.
all you need is like forget the rest.
Yeah.
Just focus on
Laurie's
these
been stressed for 40 years, which in our current, sophisticated state makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
We have language for it now.
We have language for it, yeah. Whereas I think, Halloween 2 was probably like, well, let's just do the same thing over again. She's fine.
Didn't Halloween 2, like from all my reading of Halloween, it picked up like within hours of the first one being over and just
The body down at the right left or
continued
something.
to terrorize her? Like the same, like that's...
I'm trying to remember when they introduced that it's her brother.
That was the second one from what I read.
Yeah.
Right, but then from what I understand, I think they actually kind of changed the first one after it was initially released, I think, and then added that part, and then of course it wasn't in 2018.
No.
Yeah, 2018.
So it was like it was like they went in different directions, and they
Yeah.
were like reverse.
Yeah, that didn't
happen.
work out.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, it doesn't need to be her brother.
No, it's like I like that they kind of stuck with the original mythology of the original film,
Yeah.
and sort of presented it as a genuine or a real spiritual sequel.
Yeah.
To the original.
When did you guys see the Halloween 2018? Like when it came out?
Like last night.
Oh, last night.
Yeah.
Cool.
I saw it last year.
Last year.
Yeah.
And what did you think of it?
What did I think
Like
about
when
it?
you first saw it?
Oh, the new one?
Yeah.
Oh, I enjoyed it. I'm not. I would say my tendency to horror films is not slasher films. It's not
Okay.
my most favorite.
But you see a lot of horror films.
I see a lot of horror films, but I don't watch a lot of slasher films. I mean,
Okay.
I've seen them over the past. They come and go.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite, so I will say that I almost felt like I needed to just get past that in this movie. Mm-hmm. The kids and that kind of stuff. And then I was really fascinated. First of all, I had a huge laugh about the podcasters at the beginning, which I thought was brilliant.
Oh my God, that was great.
That made so much sense.
Uh-huh.
That was so funny.
And they take themselves so seriously.
Yeah.
So seriously, and the fact that this would, of course, be true.
Of
that
course.
there would be a podcast
And of
about
course
this.
they'd be British.
Yes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And of course they'd be, insensitive and deserve to die.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's also necessary.
Yeah.
But I really loved seeing that. I just thought it made so much sense that definitely, if that happened to you when you were a teenager and you were babysitting, and that horrible trauma, that you would change as a person completely.
Completely,
And
yeah.
it made so much sense. And I thought that It was really hard to watch. It made me very sad, actually.
Yeah.
To see this character, struggling the way she was. And I don't think anyone was watching the movie going, well, there you go. I bet you're satisfied now. You were right all along. 40 years of living in a fortress paid off.
I've sort of been thinking about that all day, actually, because part of me, as I was watching the film, I was like, they're not very compassionate with her. Her family's very like, okay, enough with you and your story about what happened. Which I was thinking about it. I'm like, if you lived with someone who had that, albatross, you'd probably be like, okay, I get it. But by the same token, would she still be so like, I don't know, like she seemed like her character was so over the top with her sort of PTSD after 40 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, I don't know.
Well, was there an element though of kind of critiquing America because she was you know what I mean, as making it in 2018 in a like a real survival, gun hungry gun. You know what I mean? Like there was it was almost. I mean, I don't want to say for sure because I didn't read this. I'm just making this up right now. Is it sort of a metaphor for all these kind of fears that she'd created this fortress and in that sort of way? Maybe
a little bit. Like I think it's interesting what you said about the guns because there's scenes in the film that have a lot of guns. And I was sort of thinking about that, and I was like, is this a message thing? But then I thought, if it is a message thing, wouldn't it be very pro-gun? because they came in handy, and she clearly knows how to use them. Yeah. Well, she was definitely expecting him to come a few times, because that was a lot of weaponry. She was ready. She was like channeling Linda Hamilton at one point.
For sure, 100%. Yeah. I feel like it's the kind of film where, and I think it's because it was written by men. And there was no woman involved in writing the film. So this is their idea of like what strong women are. Right. And this is their idea of what and I do think there's like a good sort of like critique of how we culturally sort of like are rather insensitive to invisible illnesses. So her mental health is obviously, she has required a tremendous amount of help and has never gotten it, it seems, And to the extent that seems, then it has felt like actually abusive towards her child. Like her child, Karen, seems to like have grown up in this thing where she's like, well, this is my childhood. Like her yelling at me, her making me learn all of these like sort of like really difficult survival skills, spending who knows how long in a bunker underground, and just being and having intergenerational trauma, not just like through the DNA, but like literally sort of taught into her and sort of like being pulverized by that over and over again. So I thought that was really, really interesting. But like it is, it combines that with like not giving us enough time to show the bonds between the three generations of women.
Well, I mean, speaking of the three generations, I thought it was interesting that Judy Greer was cast as her daughter, because I was like, how old? She didn't like that aging didn't really make sense to me. Like how old was Laurie when and then her daughter was also like very young. Like the ages all seem sort of squished together for me. Like that was almost
and I didn't really feel like Judy Greer would have been my first choice for that role.
No.
I like her a lot as an actor, but I don't think she had a lot to do in this film.
No, and I sort of felt like on the one hand her character was like, Mom, calm down, like let's all just love and compassion, and yet she wasn't very compassionate with her own mother. And I think also too, like what you were saying about the intergenerational trauma thing is really interesting, and I think it manifests in a lot of different ways. Like you've heard this before, like I remember taking classes where we talked to people who were like the children of Holocaust survivors, and you hear stories of what it's like to have a parent who's gone through something really horrific and devastating, and how that kind of ripple effect plays out in different ways with people who have to live with them.
Yeah, and because we are sort of like in this sort of true crime obsessed culture, like I can see that they wanted to sort of present Laurie as a survivor and what survival actually looks like, which is that you literally but they define her by her trauma, and they don't give her any other defining characteristics really, outside of the fact that like her trauma has made her this deeply broken, fractured person, and that's all she gets to be.
Right.
Because she doesn't even really get to be a mom. We don't really get to see her be a grandma either. Like, we see her called these things, but we don't.
She's super fun to take out for dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah, like she's never multi-layered or multifaceted.
No.
There's not much to her except the fact that she's very, very anxious and fearful.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like she's a survivor, but she's not really surviving.
Yeah.
Well, and
not has access to hair conditioner because it was quite.
Yeah,
like,
they really, that hair I felt was a bit.
The hair was a bit much.
The
I
hair
thought
was
so.
just a lot, and especially since
thought
we
so.
know how amazing Jamie Lee Curtis looks. Why not just give her that? Like her, let her be that. What was the anyway? I know that's beside the point, but
and I don't mean to sort of like go back to like how you can feel like an absence of women being involved on the creative end, but like I feel like that's where we get that absence of women.
well, she produced. Jamie Lee Curtis
she
produced it, and I
but
think I did read. She said she wanted to support.
Her quote
Yeah.
was that she was gonna like make Laurie's trauma as authentic as possible, and,
Yeah.
and I understand why that's attractive as an actor. But it doesn't make a character three-dimensional. And I think you've got a lot of men going, this is feminist now. This is what feminism looks like. And I think that I think there's a great argument for this film is pretty feminist. But like it just feels like I'm being hammered over the head all the time. There's not a lot of nuance.
Right.
I understand this is a slasher film where a man who can only be described as probably 60 or 70 is seemingly indestructible and hell-bent
talk
on
about
murder.
age issues.
Yeah.
How the heck old is Michael Myers?
He's-
Like 70?
I don't know. Whatever was eating in the prison was really agreeing with him.
And I don't
because
remember him
he was
being
ready
like
to go.
he was like a giant too. I don't.
Is he part robot
I
or
don't-
cult? Like
We
is
don't
he
really
part
know.
Spiritual? Like I don't understand.
He's kind of really maybe the enigmatic every boogeyman.
Yeah.
Right. Like we don't really know much about him, and I think they at one point in the film they sort of were like, well, he's a human, he's a person too, and I kind of wish they would have elaborated on that more a little bit instead of just making him some sort of blanket faceless, I guess is really the only way to describe it, sort of fellow. Like I wish they'd have fleshed that out a little bit.
For me, the very first time I saw the original Halloween, I remember very distinctly thinking that he was, and I think it still holds up, the scariest of all of the bad guys in movies because he moved slowly and didn't care. So you've seen the first one.
Well, maybe the last time the Rio showed
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Just that she gets off the phone. She knows that her friend's being murdered, and she looks out the window. He doesn't run. He doesn't hide.
Yeah.
He just walks across the street in those coveralls and that mask with a knife in his hand. Literally doesn't, like, that to me, I remember watching the film and not really saying out loud, this is really scary because this guy doesn't care. But it got in me to think that this is almost like a machine, like you were saying, right? Like he just went across the street, and I remember just kills. And I think I'd just been used to like the whole idea of a socio or a criminal or something was that they skulked about and you didn't know where they were. I'm trying to hide.
See, it's interesting. Like when I was watching it last night and you know reading about it again today, and it's like, you know, it's under this banner of a horror film, and to me watching it. You know, on my couch, I never actually felt scared watching the film. Movies very rarely actually scare me, but I was actually like, I suppose surprised by the level of violence. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, it's Halloween.
Yeah.
But I guess what I was sort of surprised watching it is that it had, you know, all of these very sort of long choreographed sequences back and forth, action, 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 but it wasn't actually frightening to me. It was just a lot of violence.
Yeah.
And to me, like watching it, I wish there was more about it to make it scary.
Yeah, it had a lot of like the boy up in the room and they're like teasing you for no reason at all. Like which again, like I said, unnecessary because the scariest thing in the whole world is seeing just a guy walk across the street with a knife. I
guess to me, I'm like, give me more. I need more psycho in my psycho. Like I need more motive in my crazy. Like other than that was sort of when I was watching it, I was like, and Like
Yeah.
what? Like I need more. Like I need a motive from Michael. Like I need
Yeah.
like what's his damage? Like I
Right.
need to know more.
Which is why you love Silence of the Lambs.
Correct. Yeah, and I'd say like I would have to. I'd be lying if I said my favorite horror movie wasn't Silence of the Lambs. I've probably seen it, maybe more than many other films I've seen. But by the same token, in terms of like scariness, the other one for me is Dead Calm, which to me is a very, very scary film. It's Billy Zane again terrorizing people. The first time on a boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As opposed
With
to
Nicole Kidman?
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
As opposed
Yeah.
to his Good Time on the Titanic. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's like he's
That's your scariest movie?
Dead Calm.
Really?
Dead Calm is a pretty well. You know what? I
Okay.
saw it at an impressionable age. And it to me as a horror movie, it's so situational. Like you've got Nicole Kidman and Billy Zane, this kind of strange interloper in the middle of the ocean and in Australia, off Australia.
Yeah.
Her husband's checking out this other boat. They can kind of only communicate. There's something wrong with this guy. He's clearly a weirdo. Like there's so much about it that the tension builds and you don't know where it's going. Like there's a real compelling story there. And then in that film, once Nicole Kidman's character figures out what's going on and it's bad, she's got to get out of it. And what she has to do to get out of it is much more, to me, high level and high concept than a film like Halloween. Which,
Right.
Because situationally, I'm like, and it just all I see when I see a movie like that is just a lot of movement and action, but I'm not particularly moved or frightened.
Do you think like it would have been better if we had seen Laurie and Michael face off more than once?
I think so. I mean, I think part of the mystique of Michael Myers, though, is that he is so random. Like, they have no prior relationship. Like,
why her? Yeah.
Well, they're. So, I mean, I think if you want to sort of like step away from that and look at him as being sort of representative of, I mean, something else, if we want to endow Halloween, perhaps maybe with more weight than it deserves. But,
Yeah.
I mean, you could sort of look at it like that, as a woman, there's nothing that holds them together in terms of their relationship other than the fact that, he's like a random psycho killer and she is his prey.
His fixation.
But his fixation, that's right. But, like, other than what's going on around there, because there's no sort of pathology alluded to, to me it's very hollow.
Yeah.
And so when I watch a movie like Halloween, what my sort of critical mind says is like, why are people enjoying watching what to me is very senseless violence? Where if I'm going to watch something that's violent, I want to enjoy it and be scared or get that pleasure because I have a deeper understanding of something a little more terrifying and nuanced going on.
You literally want to be terrorized.
I want that. And then it's much more scary. Like, to me, even something, like Silence of the Lambs or Dead Calm, I don't really think of them as being particularly violent. I mean, there's bad things that happen, but it's the idea of the fear, the idea of the scary. Like when you meet the Buffalo Bill character and that girl is in the well and the way that she's abducted and all of these things that build and build. You get a little more taste of like, okay, this is the window to crazy that I have not seen open before.
Yes.
Whereas when I watch Halloween, I'm looking through the window and I'm just like, and like
and
it doesn't move me in the same way.
And he's so indestructible. He's so like you can't know any. He's unknowable. Like you can't know anything about him. And I think like so I watched this with my grandma and Carlos over the weekend, and my grandma also much more enjoys. Like she's also we watch a lot of true crime together, and so she much more enjoys legitimately sort of scary in real life things as opposed to slasher films.
Sure.
Like that's not right. She laughed numerous times in this movie in places that I was not expecting, and I just kept being like, okay, well you haven't fallen asleep, so I mean you're enjoying it enough, like it's keeping you awake. And so, what I think I appreciated about it. Because I also don't do slasher films. Like, I get really scared really easily.
Did you find this movie scary? Like, when you
there
watched
were, 3 parts where I did find it scary, but it wasn't because of action that was happening on screen. It's because of the score. Oh. So I'm someone who, like, the music really affects me.
Sure.
And when, even though I can analyze it and be like, well, this is when they want me to be scared, it works. Unless I cover my ears. So I'm a person who will watch films like this.
Interesting.
A lot, actually.
Okay.
More so than even covering my eyes. I try to cover my ears so that like I can't be manipulated sonically, I suppose. And yet The Shining is one of my favorite films because I also find that like deeply terrifying, and its score does so much of the heavy lifting of that film. But what I liked about this is that we did get to spend a lot of time. Like I liked spending a lot of time with these three women characters, even if I was ultimately a bit dissatisfied with like how they were rendered. Like I did find it a bit refreshing thinking about all the movies we've watched where we talked about final girl trope and like all of that kind of stuff, and then to have it sort of have this ending that it doesn't quite earn because suddenly the three generations of Strode women are on the same page. Although that is, you know, if you're going to be like have a moment where community will rise up, it's going to be women rising up against a violent, horrible serial killer, especially a man. So I'm down with that. But we see them sort of like flip the script and trap him in that basement where it's actually a cage. It's not, you know, and they talk about how it's actually a cage and stuff like that. That was very satisfying for me. And I wanted to spend more time with those, like the three women in that moment. Like I wanted more time bonding with them over coming together and like sort of like triumphing over this dude who we end up finding out they did not triumph over because there's another Halloween movie coming.
There's another two.
Yeah, 2020 and 2021.
And in a fun turn, because I'm a Real Housewives of Beverly Hills fan, is that the original, the one of the women who played the child in the original Halloween, is coming back as an adult. Kyle Richards.
Wow.
She's been waiting a long time for that.
She has been waiting a very, very, very... I don't think anyone saw that coming at all. I did not. And, you know, I try my best to keep up.
For all that... I'm going to come back to the ending in a couple minutes, but I just want to... For all that, like, we see survivalist Jamie Lee Curtis, she doesn't end up being that great a shot. And she also really doesn't seem to sort of think through... once she gets him in the house, like I understand we're supposed to see that she's like hunting him finally and the prey has been reversed, blah, blah, blah. But she's so terrified and Judy Greer's character just gets to sort of sit in a basement and whimper. Like no one is really sort of...
The granddaughter.
The granddaughter's, yeah, she does a great job.
Yes.
She does a great job.
So, but maybe that's some kind of, I don't know, like...
Yeah.
I don't know.
Something. But I just thought... Man, she's a good shot. She should have been able to take him out by now. But he gets so many chances to like almost kill her.
Well, I think we discussed that there's some kind of supernatural or that he's not just, is he meant to just be like regular guy?
I think he is and he isn't, because he is a regular guy, right? Like there's no, I don't really pick up on the supernatural, but I think of him more as being like literally kind of an enigma.
Yeah, the way the therapist is talking about him at the beginning too, right? Is like he's trying to crack him and, you know, and...
He's really mythologized, and maybe that mythology has sort of given him superhuman strength because he can get like hit by a car and like... Well,
he's also very lucky. Like, I mean, that was the other thing. I was like, oh man, this guy
buying lottery tickets.
Like, or he lives in a very unpopulated part of America because like that was the other thing. It's like I know it's kind of expected in horror movies sometimes that like, you know, A and leads to B, you know, B leads to C kind of thing like that. But I was like, oh, give me a break. Like it was a bit much. The way I don't really understand. One part led to the next. It was like a little too like Michael Myers has a horseshoe.
Yeah. I didn't really understand why, as a sociopathic killer, you would hide for a bit in a children's bedroom. Like it just was he just getting a rest in, or like
I don't know. I mean, I felt the same thing about the. You know, it's funny actually. The only part of the movie like that I was thinking about that I wouldn't say that made me scared, but that I didn't like was the way that the two podcasters, specifically the female podcaster, was, you know, brutalized, shall we say, in the bathroom. The way that she met that end, to me, actually, I found, I wouldn't even go so far as to say I was upset by it, but of all of the violence in the film, I think she really seemed to get the most of it. Or to me, something about their interaction struck me as more bothersome than anything else that I saw that was much more violent.
It could
in
be
film.
the filmmakers themselves hate true crime podcasters because they
Right.
definitely were set up to be hated.
I think so, and I think also too there was perhaps maybe for me like, you know, like the only part of the film that felt kind of real was the experience of, you know, being in a public bathroom and having somebody, you know, like that's my worst nightmare. Jiggle the door when you're in there. You're like, no, like that is like.
And then the whole look down and see the giant boots.
Yeah, like that to me so when it's funny because when I was watching it after that part of the film, which is early on in the film, I was like, oh, this is going to be like a scary movie. And then I just found the rest of it was long choreographed action that I didn't really find as interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's...
And her fear was more palpable. Like,
Yeah.
Like, I think, like, I mean, I don't know if that's certainly, like, you know, towards the actress who performed in that role, but situationally, it was, again, for me, it's about the situation.
She made the most. And
she
honestly,
made the most.
that
yeah.
bathroom looked terrifying as well.
It did.
Like, every expression she made
no
when she threw
cleaning.
open the bathroom door.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just having to like dive on the floor, no.
I know, and we watch her. She actually the actress nails that so perfectly.
Yeah.
Like the character's feelings of like, I'm gonna vomit.
Yeah.
While I'm on this floor, but I also have no choice because I understand that I'm about to be murdered.
Yeah.
She did a great job.
I think so too, and it's kind of funny that was for me was the setup of like, oh, this is gonna be really scary, and then to be honest with you, I feel the rest of it was quite flat, and to me, I found that very surprising because, like, I think when this movie came out last year, of course, like in the wake of Me Too and everything there, and maybe you saw that the Comic-Con video of the gentleman who I think it was at Comic-Con who spoke to Jamie Lee Curtis at one of those sort of convention things and talked about his own experience with trauma and PTSD, and then she sort of, hugged him, and it was very, I think it went viral. I think he was going to say that. So having seen that and having this idea in my head, I was really surprised at, in my opinion, how flat the rest of it felt, especially after that bathroom scene.
I guess, I suppose, to be fair to these guys who made this film, the bar was very low. So anything they did, probably to elevate.
I feel like they could. I feel like it could have been better though.
Sure.
I think my expectation
I agree.
was higher.
I feel like slasher films.
Right.
It's like I don't find that you're right about what you said. There's no fear. There's no challenge. It's like a weight. Let's see how this person dies in the most bizarre way possible.
Yeah, and it's funny too. Like I program movies at a movie theater. I talk to people about movies a lot. And we show a lot of horror movies because people like them, and I think a lot of them, especially like the sort of art house horror genre, is to me, honestly, my favorite genre. Mm-hmm. But I've had so many friends of mine over the years who've said, when I said, oh, do you want to go see this movie or that movie, or even a movie like Mandy, like we were talking about earlier, and their answer is, I don't want to see people get hurt or brutalized. I hear that a lot from people, which to me is kind of surprising because I'm like, well, that's in so many films, and yet in this film, I understand why people are like, I don't want to watch it. Like, it's a slasher film, it's too much. But that's why, I don't know, it's weird for me. It just seemed very like all the violence was for entertainment, but it didn't go anywhere. So maybe I'm the dark horse because I want some more heft with my violence. I want to feel it.
Well, I think you want a rationale behind it. Then you don't feel like you're watching people exploited. But I do think in the last little while, like we did It Follows.
Okay.
And that was, to me, just brilliant horror filmmaking. And the other one that really stood out for me recently is Babadook.
Okay. Yeah.
And I feel like if we have examples of those two movies, this one feels a bit disappointing.
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree. I think that there's been other more recent films like having to do.
And I chose them because they are female-led and smarter.
I think so too. Like, I mean, and also in that category, I'd also put forward Goodnight Mommy, which is also I
haven't seen it.
No. Oh, it's an Austrian. I think it's Austrian film.
I have. Is that the twins?
Yes.
I know. That is so upsetting.
Yeah.
That is such an upsetting movie. And I will go, sorry. I'm just all of a sudden like,
ooh, yeah. You are going through some stuff right now.
And those filmmakers have another film coming out too. But like,
you're right about that.
Yeah.
That is, you don't even, like this movie, you said there's beats that you are expecting.
Yeah.
And in those movies, I had no idea what was coming next, ever. And that is more scary.
Well, with the mention of Babadook, Mashable has an article about final girl tropes, and it says, recent hits like The Babadook and Hereditary, for example, are slowly replacing the final girl archetype with the dysfunctional mother, or mothers who are demonized after suffering a monstrous trauma. And I mean, so is this a lateral move for women stereotypes in films? Like,
that's a really good question.
Well, I don't know. I think it's an interesting move. Like, I mean, I have to admit, I have seen The Babadook, but my main memory of that film is trying to stay awake because I saw it at a film festival, so I was very, very tired. But my takeaway was like, that kid is so annoying. Like that child in the film, he's so like grating to watch, like the way he talks, like everything about it. It makes parenthood look like the nightmare of all time, right? But like that, I mean,
I'm like, I don't have children, but Lisa, would you like to talk about parenthood as the nightmare of all?
Isn't that the takeaway of the, like, that's what I took away from The Babadook, is that like it was like, to me, as like a movie about birth control. Like, it's like the worst thing would be having to deal with that kid who was perfect.
Yeah,
but also grating on the nerves.
Yeah, but did you fall asleep for the part where her husband's killed on the way to the hospital where she has the baby?
I don't remember that.
Okay,
part
see,
so
that's
much, but yeah, I was just really.
So the fact is that she hates him,
right?
Because that reminds her that the only reason they were driving and that she lost her husband was because she was going to deliver him, and so she won't celebrate birthdays.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because the day it happens to be the same day that her husband was killed.
Yep.
And the takeaway from that film is that you have to learn to accept the trauma and not let it overwhelm you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess also too, like what you were just talking about, like in terms of like the generational trauma and maybe this sort of different kind of final girl is like, I think it's interesting that maybe. And I think this is probably something that's happened since the original Halloween, is that we sort of looked at parenthood, maybe specifically motherhood, as not something that is universally enjoyed. And that people find fulfilling, or that women find fulfilling.
Yeah.
And we're kind of now at a place maybe where a lot of women kind of maybe feel like it's okay to say that, or maybe, well, it's never really okay to say because you'll always be, thrown under the bus for it.
Yeah.
But that maybe it's not the best
or
what they wanted it to be, and that they have resentments or doubts or
just
something
even
about
complicated
their children.
feelings.
Well, that's what the whole Babadook's exploring.
Right.
She hates this kid pretty much, right?
Yeah.
But it's hers, and she's gonna stick with him, and but she's not. No, there's nothing in it. There's no joy.
I mean, I suppose at least with like demonized mothers replacing final girls, there's probably less gratuitous nudity. just from like a actors getting parts kind of
but just to go back to that theme though, but even still, think about the original Halloween. She was babysitting.
Right.
That's true. She was in a mothering role.
She was in a mothering role. Yeah. So it's as if that
the caretaker is always
that whoever writes these stories. Even we were just discussing Hustlers. Have you seen that?
No.
Oh, it's so good.
Well, just that idea is that these women are, willing to drug men because they got kids.
Well, it's interesting. I mean,
that's
By the same token, too. Like, I mean, now that I think about it, like Dead Calm, the beginning of that film is that Nicole Kidman is driving in a car and she's behind the wheel and something happens and the child dies. So then her and her husband, played by Sam Neill, go out on the boat and kind of are trying to recover. Right. So that's sort of the
so there's like a central loss
there's the central conceit of that film and interestingly even too I just by the same token saw another strange Scandinavian I suppose film at Vancouver Film Fest called Coco di Coco Da, which also deals with parenthood and trauma and these sort of things. So thematically, I think it's interesting, like sort of going back to what we're talking about is what these feelings are, and maybe having something bad happen to you because you don't fully embrace or you have resentment.
The guilt.
The guilt, or that you somehow failed in your role as a parent.
Yeah.
And that these other things are happening to you as a result of that. And is it a commentary? I would imagine if you were a parent and something were to happen to a child or in any stage of their life, you might, moving forward, feel kind of that sense of neuroses or paranoia that things are happening to you, bad things are happening to you because of some sort of, karmic wave that you have made, so now you're deserving of it. So to me, on that level, that kind of pathology is a little more meaty, and there's a little more to it that makes sense.
Well, then there's something then that I think this Halloween had an opportunity to do, but maybe it just didn't do it as well as it could have. Yeah. Which is like, if we think about Karen's journey from like Judy Greer just doesn't get a lot to do with this role, and sort of that small pivot at the end when she uses her character's trait so far, which is kind of like simpering and fearful and sort of difficult a little bit. And then she uses that to lure Michael towards her, flips the script on it, and has her like power moment. Like if we think about, if we had a chance to maybe see a little bit more nuance in her development and in her characterization, like, and that guilt that Laurie carries for not being able to be a different kind of mom, like she's, because if we think of her like also in relation to like Hustlers or whatever, she's just doing her best. Like she has very few resources. We don't know anything about where the father of this child has gone. We don't know how she gets money. Like, we don't know much about like what has happened to her. And we have no answers except for the fact that like we see that she lives very much alone, kind of like in Scream when Neve Campbell's character is like hidden away, and they try to
Scream 2, I guess, is where you sort of meet her after she's had the trauma of the first film,
and we sort of see like how she, or even Scream 3 or 4, one where she's like locked up in the farmhouse away from the. Is that Scream 2?
Well, I'm thinking of I think it's the beginning of Scream 2 where you meet her and she's a counselor and she's living in a house that seems very barricaded.
Yes. And she's working that job because she can do it from home.
That's right.
And so I was thinking about that a lot with this character as well, because like movies that want to try and grapple with something so complicated as PTSD, if they don't have the right sort of like resources and they don't have the sort of perfect person to sort of inject that humanity into the script, you're going to get a somewhat flattened depiction. You're going to get this sort of like, and I think actually even Jamie Lee Curtis's, the way that she talks about her understanding of PTSD and victimhood and survivorhood is a little bit, I'm going to say like a little bit like unnuanced. Like she has this idea, like I don't know how much research she's really done into sort of like what it is to carry that kind of like a strenuous trauma. And again, these are fictional worlds, so we don't have to like hold them to the same standards. But if they want to create a world that really evokes that kind of terror that someone might carry with them for so long, like that's where you're not getting scared.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of, you just kind of hit the nail on the head, is that like all of these parts seem to fit together on paper and make sense. But why didn't it happen more in the film? Like, why wasn't she given more humanity? Why didn't we know a little bit more about her? Like, I feel like a lot of the talk or things that I've read around Halloween the Halloween 2018 build it up far more than the film itself does. Like, it's like better in
we wish it was,
practice,
as you said, one of those art house horror movies.
And it could have benefited from being an art house horror movie.
Yeah, because they went with like a genre like a Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. Kind of, let's just keep a little bit of that.
The goofiness
of the original franchise.
Yeah.
And then we'll throw in, we'll huck you a bone over here with some sophisticated conversation.
It's like why put that stuff, on the table in front of me as an entree and then not let me taste it? Like, it's like you had all the intention, but you didn't follow through. Like, I don't think there's a huge gap between what we're talking about and making it happen in the film.
You know what it is? It's lip service. It's a marketing. It's using feminism as a marketing tool as opposed to really like making something truly feminist
and thoughtful. And I think for me, that's where I just, because I feel like it takes a lot for me to buy into any conceit in a film anyway. I'm really picky that way. That's why I don't find most things scary, because I'm just not there. And that for me is kind of the like lost cause of the movie, I guess.
Well, especially when, like, again, going back to Silence of the Lambs, it's hard to think of a better female character ever than Clarice.
Right.
I mean, just in what she had to accomplish.
That's why I told Rachel we'll have to have her back for when we do Silence of the Lambs, because we've never done it.
No, and we should. I've seen it probably about
me
5
too.
or 6 times too. Yeah, I mean,
I went through a real phase when I was in high school. I remember actually, because that film came out again when I was sort of at that age, and I think I read the book before I saw the movie because I wasn't old enough to get in to see The Silence of the Lambs, and I remember being so drawn to the poster that I was like, I'm going to read the book. And so I read the book, and I think I even read the sequel. And then when I finally saw the movie, it was like everything I wanted it to be and more.
Yeah.
And so many of those sort of themes that we've, talked about here, like they're certainly deeply in the book and covered enough in the film. Like even in that film, Clarice doesn't have a child, but she did have a lamb.
Yeah.
And that's the
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
that's
the whole title of the whole goddamn
have
thing.
the
Yeah,
lamb
I know.
stop screaming,
Yeah.
Clarice,
Yeah.
And, like she had her own loss and her own feelings of guilt and surrounding her father's death and all of those things that get kind of re-examined where everything fits and makes sense, and her understanding of the world is sort of explained by Lecter,
I mean, it is
not
like
in
as much as I want to get mad at
Yeah.
at people for identifying that and using it against us in movies, it's true.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
we will feel these things, and you said that is the thing for her. And also, I mean, this is a story about her trying to find kidnapped women.
Yeah.
Well, and also, like, going back to Halloween for a second, and I just thought about this, but this is the question that always comes up, is when we talk about, like, serial killers, and how, like, oh, it's always complicated relationships with their moms.
Yeah.
Like, no one's ever being like, oh, well, where was the dad?
No.
And honestly,
Yeah.
where is Karen's dad? Where is this Mr. Strode?
Yeah.
Like,
He had enough.
He's gone.
yeah.
He's
He
gone.
built-
He's
well,
done.
and Karen's husband's not.
Karen's husband, I was very surprised. I would not be okay with my spouse talking to my very traumatized mother.
Yeah.
In that way,
Yeah.
I would be like, nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
And honestly,
Like,
just on another
not that he
level,
was,
like, where do they
super
get
rude,
this
but-
actor? Like,
Oh, he's great. I
Yeah.
love him. He's in Glow.
Oh, he is?
He's in the
Okay,
new
yeah.
season of Glow.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's have you watched the new season of Glow?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, he's Betty Gilpin's cowboy. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
cowboy lover.
Toby
Okay.
Toby Doss, Toby
Yeah.
Ross.
Oh,
I can't
wow.
remember.
Okay, all right.
Anyway,
I do also have to give, I feel like a shout out to whoever designed the mechanism of the bunker. I found
brilliant.
The island, a kitchen island.
Oh, yeah.
Like and what appeared in like as like an 80s era garage door opener.
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
To move the island, like it was very Gilligan's Island to me.
Yeah.
Like the professor was like, Lori, let me help you out here. I'm gonna take
Like,
these
who
coconuts.
builds these things? Do you get a contractor? Like, I
don't know.
On an like,
We don't know how she paid for anything.
She
All that
many failed interviews with podcasters
I
for
mean,
$3,000.
can you imagine that? That's just how.
well, like, how much did he offer to pay her or something?
$3,000.
$3,000
Yeah. Okay.
to not talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that. I like that she took the money.
Yeah.
It made me happy.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, get out. You just want to exploit. You just like the questions that they had for her were so insulting and so awful, and I was just like, all right, get out.
But and it's even too like situationally like why like when he had the mask like at the beginning of the film and he's like I got this from the DA. I'm like, did you steal it? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
you just took it out of the cardboard box in the
And
in
you
the
just want
lab.
to go taunt a man? Like, I didn't understand that.
Don't- yeah.
That didn't.
So many questions.
So many questions.
Like,
Yeah.
one thing I have been watching Manhunter on.
of course.
You watched.
I'm in love with Mr. Tench actually.
Oh,
Wait,
who's
so wait,
not?
hold on. Manhunter
Sorry.
or Mindhunter?
Mindhunter.
Okay, just checking.
Manhunter's actually the
Yes.
Silence of the Lambs precursor,
yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
which I did see.
So Mindhunter, I've only seen the first 3 episodes of season 1. I'm not caught up yet.
Oh.
I've watched both seasons several
Yeah.
times.
Oh,
wow.
And
Okay.
I'm currently reading the book.
But those interviews with these serial killers
Right.
are terrifying.
And fascinating too
And
because
fascinating, but you
because-
can feel how like in being in that place with these people.
Yes.
It actually starts to make me anxious because I'm thinking I really they did such a good job that I'm feeling like, oh my God, these people killed a lot of people.
and they're people too, right? Like
Yeah.
I think they almost touched on it in Halloween where I think was it Jamie Lee Curtis's character? She's like, Michael is just a person, or somebody said something along those lines, and yet we don't learn anything about him or what motivates him or what's going on in his noodle. But he is ultimately just a person. He does exist. He's not a figment of anyone's imagination. Whereas in something like Mindhunter, which isn't particularly as a show, it's not particularly violent, but it's really scary because of the banality, I hate to say it, of the evil, right?
Yes,
like
yes.
that's the thing. Like, when Ed Kemper's talking and he's so, talking about,
And that's why he gets an anxiety attack and makes complete sense.
And yet at the same time, I'll never think of an egg salad sandwich the same way again because Ed Kemper's changed it for me. But like I like, to me, it's those pathologies of people just kind of like, yeah, I did this thing and it's crazy and it makes no sense. And here, have an egg salad sandwich. To me is far like, if I may.
And the fact that he turned himself in.
Yeah.
Because he was bored.
Right. Yeah. And I have to say, sort of in a similar thing, I'm on the weekend I was chatting with somebody who lives in Texas and is a sheriff, and he guards people. And he so we were talking about things, and I said, have you ever had to guard anyone? And he was telling me that he spent a fair amount of time watching somebody who was on death row for a well-known crime. And had a regular interaction with him until he was executed. Thank you. And I was like, well, like, what was that like? And he said, what he said was that the person was actually very polite, was very sort of calm and whatever. And it was interesting having this conversation with somebody, and sort of it's like there's the heightened, enigmatic, Michael Myers, and then there's the reality is just that, I don't want to say sometimes these people that do terrible things just snap and have really bad days, and maybe there's nothing behind it.
Live next door to you.
And live next door to you.
Yeah.
Like, and I think to me that is far more terrifying, but also more compelling.
Yeah.
Like, it's more interesting.
Yes.
Like, because I don't buy, like, in the beginning of the film when we, re-meet Michael Myers and he's in, like, this weird asylum that doesn't make any sense.
No, I know.
And
The doctor doesn't make any sense.
The doctor doesn't make sense. The
Yeah.
floor of the outdoor asylum to
Yeah.
me looked like it was from Suspiria
It's
or something
ridiculous.
like that. It was very
I know.
strange.
Yeah.
And none of that made any sense to me. It was so goofy, and it's like, wouldn't it, like, it would have, I don't think it would have been a huge leap to give that character a little something, at least for the audience to be like, latch onto. I mean, even Freddy Krueger has an origin story that you're like, wow.
Yeah, I know.
Well, all of this said, we do have to wrap up.
Yes.
And one of the things we like to sort of assess at the end is, does Halloween 2018 pop?
I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say not for me, but I'm generally a humorless yob, so maybe that's why. Maybe that's why.
I will say that if you are a person who likes a good Halloween slasher film, it's probably better than most, which if you make the mistake of going through Netflix's horror section, it's just a constant barrage of girls in T-shirts at slumber parties and haunted houses getting killed and killing lots of other people. So it's not one of those. But I think as we've explored, it could have been so much better, and that is a kind of disappointment.
Yeah. So it for me too. It's like it pops enough. But I mean, that's like, again, compared to like other genres, at the very least we have the most we can expect from certain filmmakers in attempting to make feminist.
And if somebody is in the theater and this is a new thought to them of PTSD and they've never occurred to them, so that's interesting for them maybe.
We also love to leave our episodes on something we recommend. And Rachel, as our guest, would you like to go first?
Of like a film
In pop culture, anything you like.
Well, oh gosh, that is really hard. Well, we've covered Mindhunter, which I adored. I'm trying to think if there's anything else really right now that's got my fancy. Hard to say. I'm overwhelmed because I've just come from a film festival, but I will say, like, in the course of this whole Halloween thing over the last couple of days, what has really popped in terms of like pop culture thing for me, and this is totally non sequitur, is having been told that the Michael Myers mask was actually a William Shatner mask painted white. That's that.
How did William Shatner get?
Well, no, that was the prop. That is the original Mike Myers. Actually, it's a William Shatner mask painted white, and that is Michael Myers' mask. So for me, like, in terms of pop culture, like, I'm like, well, that's that James T. Kirk is somehow Mike Myers
Affiliated.
to me.
And Mike Myers is also Canadian.
It is also Canadian, right?
So
it all
it's
comes.
all-
it's all connected.
It's all connected to Canada, as we
Clearly.
usually want it to be. So.
Yeah, that's exactly that was it. I was like, that to me was like a joyous little nugget that I had to share.
Agree. That's
That
good.
is a joyous little nugget.
A joyous
And I
little
will
nugget.
offer up the film that we were discussing before we started chatting, which is Mandy, and I
Yeah.
hadn't seen it before, starring Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
I only knew a little bit about it, so I'm just going to leave it at that.
It's
except
punishing.
It is.
It's a punisher. It's punishing.
It's very upsetting.
Yeah.
It's very odd.
Yeah.
The soundtrack's great.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's Cage at his cagiest. Like, he's literally chewing
yeah.
the scenery.
If you like your revenge films with quips, it's good for that. And don't do drugs.
That's great.
Or join a cult.
Or join a cult.
Yeah,
I
those-
mean,
Great
Yeah.
advice with love from
yes,
Pop This.
Yes.
I'm going to recommend a new song by Little Scream, which is a great, person for Halloween. Although her music has nothing to do with Halloween, just a good name for
Just
Halloween.
screaming.
She's from the States originally, but makes her home in Montreal, and she officially now calls Canada home for like good or whatever. She's really so talented, so brilliant. And her new record is called Speed Queen. It's not out till I think like November, but the new song is called Disco Ball, and it's so good. I really want everyone to go listen to it. It's just fantastic, and you'll really love it.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, Rachel. Where can people find you if they want to find you?
Oh, I'm always at the Rio.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm upstairs in the bunker.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure having
And happy
you.
Halloween.
Oh, thank you. I can't wait. Well, you guys should come on down and see some movies. We are actually going to be screening the original. So
The original.
yeah.
Perfect. That's fantastic.
wow.
Yeah.
I really want to see the original now, so I'm
Yeah.
going to be there.
All right.
You can hang out with us on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You could come and hang out with us at the Vancouver Podcast Festival, November 7th to 10th. We will also be doing some evening shows at the Rio. So
I can't wait to have you guys back. It was such a fun event last year.
What a convenient relationship.
Yeah.
Nice
It's so great.
segue
And the
there,
Rio,
Nice
too, right?
shameless plug.
Yes.
a shameless plug. But honestly, I really love doing shows at the Rio and just even being in the audience for shows at the Rio. So I'm really happy about that.
Oh, good.
And you can rate and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere else. 5 stars, please.
Please, 5 stars. And as usual, thank you so much. We recorded at the Vancouver Public Library. Andrea Gin is our producer. And again, to my best lady pals, happy 200.
Happy 200. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. It's
Yeah.
like really special
Gosh,
and
if
amazing.
you listen to 200 of these, wow. Like I can't even remember what they were.
No, I know, but that's the beautiful part. Is just
It's just been such a golden relationship that I don't even remember the highs, the lows.
the
It's just all
miles-
been so great.
the miles and gigabytes of data just disappear beneath us.
Oh, that's beautiful.
All right, thank you.
Bye.